Right, so good morning, everyone. I think Michael really touched on a couple of the key themes, almost word for word, that I want to talk about this morning, and Peter reiterated some of them. So I look at global companies, and the period of the last few months has been incredibly revealing. And I think there are two themes in particular that stand out for me. The first is that the crisis has really exposed the underlying fragility and weakness in a lot of business models. By the same token, but for a much smaller group of companies, it's revealed just how strong and, to use Michael's word, how anti-fragile these businesses are. And then the second theme is that the crisis has accelerated a number of trends that were already in place pre-crisis. And so I think the combination of these two themes is going to lead to a growing and accelerating gap between the winning and losing companies, both in the real economy and in the stock market. So we'll start with, let's have a look at what the companies are seeing and saying. And I think the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, really summed it up nicely when he said, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. I'm going to look through, talk about a couple of other companies that we hold actually in the fund. And let's have a look at what they're seeing on a real-time basis. These are global companies. The next few companies also have a lot to do, and they serve a lot of small and medium enterprises. And this is an area where really you would expect a lot of the most pain in the market at present. So we'll start with a company called Etsy. Now, Etsy is an online marketplace that sells handmade, homemade, handcrafted goods. So if you think of Amazon as like a online pick-and-pay hyper, then Etsy is more like your corner boutique store or a craft market. So Etsy started the year growing quite nicely, quite quickly. And then once there were the stay-at-home orders, and then people weren't allowed to go, the kids weren't allowed going to school, it was quite disruptive for supply chains. And so you saw quite a marked deceleration. Then once people were at home and sort of got to grips with what was happening, sales actually exploded to over 100% in April. And so Etsy sellers are largely, people working from home, just making these craft items. And in late March, the company sent out a push notification, a message to all of their sellers saying, calling all sellers, start making face masks. And Etsy went from selling essentially 0 face masks to 12 million just in the month of April alone. And what's quite interesting is that the Etsy software engineers actually had to retrain the search algorithm, because what it was showing before, what it used to show, is the face mask, the sort of creams and pastes that you put on your face when you go to the spa, or that Peter Armitage likes to put on each night. So what it highlights is the adaptability of the platform and of these individual sellers to respond. And then more recently, I read that what's actually exploding now is sales of baked goods. So people who bake from their own homes are now actually making money from selling baked goods. So people have been able to use Etsy to supplement their income. Another example, MERCADOLIBRE is essentially the Amazon of Latin America, and it's a region that's really struggling on numerous fronts. Similar to, and this is a fast-growing company and a fast-growing category, because e-commerce penetration in Latin America is very low. It's a small fraction of what it is in the United States. So again, similar story to Etsy. Started the year growing very rapidly. Saw a deceleration really towards the end of March, particularly in countries like Brazil, where they had very harsh lockdown measures, and it really impacted the supply chain. And then once they got through that, you saw once again an explosion in demand in April. So April growth was over 70% year on year. Shopify is a company that helps businesses put up a store online. They also provide tools and software and point-of-sale devices to companies that run physical stores. And so you can use the Shopify software on an omni-channel basis. In the 6 weeks to the 24th of April, the merchants or customers that they work with that operate physical stores saw their sales down 70% versus just the prior six-week period. What's amazing, though, is that those sellers were able to shift 94% of those lost sales online. So it just speaks to the flexibility and the dynamic nature of the platform and how really Shopify was able to step in and help their customer base, who's largely small and medium enterprises. And unfortunately in South Africa, as Michael spoke about, we're a lot further back, and the regulations are a lot more draconian. They're not allowing entrepreneurs to respond and adapt, which they are in other countries. And then finally, I want to talk about Wix, which is it's an Israeli company, but they provide people with tools that allow you to build websites. Wix saw, once again, explosive growth as individuals and companies that were predominantly offline realized we need to get online and in a hurry. So Wix added, and they, just to take a step back, they offer a freemium model. So you can sign up and get a Wix website for free, but if you want more functionality, if you want commerce tools, if you want to be able to transact and receive payments, then you need to pay. So they saw 3.2 million new free users in April, and that number is up 63% year on year. What's even more remarkable is the number of, they added 200% more paying subscribers in April this year than they did last year. And it's just showing that people need to move online as a matter of urgency in order to get their businesses running. So you can think of an example where if you're a gym instructor, whereas before people would come to you at the gym, now you might be running those classes at home, and then you can charge people online. And once again, Wix's customer base is largely small and medium enterprises. So it just shows you how flexible and how quickly those merchants and those people have been able to respond. So the major theme, there are the various themes like onshoring and businesses taking the supply chain from China back to the US. But really for me, the major theme through all of this, the one that is accelerating, is the shift from physical to digital. Now, why is there this move? What is so great about digital? And to borrow what Michael said, is he said, I think you've got to go back to first principles. And to my mind, and it's not true in every case, but to my mind at least, the digital products in most cases is actually just a better product. So if you consider the example of Netflix, and you compare it to the traditional cable or satellite TV bundle, it's cheaper. I can watch what I want to watch, when I want to watch it, and there's no ads. So it's largely a better product. If I think of Amazon, I've got infinite selection. I don't have to drive to the store. I don't have to stand in a queue. And they bring all the products to my doorstep. So that's very convenient. The product can also be, the customer doesn't have to be a consumer like you or me. It could be a merchant or a small business. So think about what Shopify or what Wix do. Help stores set up in 5 minutes or an hour online. It's a lot easier setting up a store online, and it's a lot cleaner and smoother than negotiating a rent agreement, actually operating a physical store. So in a lot of cases, it's just a better product. Now, if you've got a better product, that means that you're inevitably going to get more people buying your product. You're going to gain market share, which means your revenues go up and so do your cash flows. then what the great businesses do is they take those extra revenues, the extra cash flow, and they reinvest in the business, and they hire really good people, they spend on marketing, and they reinvest in the product to make it a better product. And so you get this virtuous cycle in digital, which turns faster and faster. If you contrast that with physical, the situation that a lot of physical companies that operate in the physical world, they're faced with what's turning into a vicious cycle. So their starting point often is an inferior product, which means that they lose market share largely to the digital players. That impacts their revenue and cash flow, which means that they've got less capacity to reinvest in the business. Some of these companies are trying to maintain dividends because they've got a shareholder base that wants dividends. And so they will, in order to maintain the dividend, they'll cut spending in all the important parts of the business. So they're less able to reinvest in creating a superior product. So over time, the product gets worse and worse over time, and that becomes a vicious cycle that spins faster and faster. So how's this going to play out in earnings? Let's look at digital and physical. The dotted line, the blue dotted line, is the earnings trajectory that we had in place before the crisis. So the digital line is a steeper line. I think we all expect those companies to grow a bit faster. I think because of this virtuous cycle that's in place and the accelerating trends, I think that earnings trajectory is accelerating and is inflected upwards from where it would have been. And I think these businesses are going to have permanently higher earnings power. In contrast that with physical, clearly these businesses have taken a huge knock. You would expect a lot of them to recover, but because they're in this vicious cycle, I think that some of them, it's going to take them a long, long time to get back to the prior trajectory, and I think some of them might not get there at all. Next, let's look at, this is my view of what's going to happen to valuations and PE multiples. So these are just the PE, the first bar is the PE before. This is just a conceptual model, it's not actual numbers. On the left is you've got the PE multiple before crisis, and then on the right, PE multiple post-crisis. Digital had already had a higher multiple than physical. I think because this crisis has revealed that these companies are actually net beneficiaries of crisis, they are anti-fragile, I think you can see it's likely that their PE multiples will go up. And I think for physical companies, what the crisis has revealed is that these companies are more fragile and actually riskier than we could have ever thought possible. And so I think the digital companies, you put that together, I think have a double tailwind in terms of your PE multiple and in terms of your earnings. And then your physical companies have got a double headwind, a double whammy of lower earnings and a lower PE multiple. And I think because these cycles tend to be self-reinforcing, I think this is a trend that has got a very long time to play out. I can see this playing out over the next 5 to 10 years. So the key message for me in terms of separating between the winners and losers is I think that the winners are going to keep on winning. The flip side of that also is I think there's always a temptation to go and sift through the most beaten up areas of the market, names that look cheap on a PE basis or have a high dividend yield. There are some people that can do that successfully, but I think you've got to be extremely, extremely careful. And I think those areas are a lot more dangerous than people think. It's not going to be a straight line in terms of these trends. The winners are not going to win every day, and the losers are not going to lose every day. You'll get rotation between the two. But to my mind, I see no reason why this trend is going is going to change long term. Finally, just to end with a quote from Jeff Bezos saying, if you're a share owner in Amazon, you may want to take a seat because we're not thinking small. So I love that kind of that encapsulates the winner's mindset. Bezos, I love his the scale of his vision and ambition. So I think Bezos is a winner, Amazon is a winner, and I think companies like Amazon, the digital companies predominantly, are going to keep on winning. And that's it from me. Thank you.